These are 3 of the most common mistakes I see character artists make today and what you can do about it. Hey, I'm Jay, and I'm a character artist for games. I've been doing character art and 3D modeling for a long time, and I review a lot of people's work as a part of the members on this channel and the Discord and my class. Over the years, I've reviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of character art portfolios, and I wanted to make a video that highlights the most important things to address that are keeping them from either going up a level or having someone consider hiring them. So right off the top, I want to say, I think we should be doing art for fun. We should be doing art because it brings us joy in some way. But a lot of people ask me questions and advice about getting hired. Obviously, that's the dream, is if someone would pay us money to do the things that we want to do, that's great. So these are the 3 things I think you should be doing if you're not already, to try and make your work get to that next level or help when people are reviewing it. All right, so I'm gonna start off with the most important mistake that I think everyone should address, okay? If you just want to do one, it's this one right here. The number 1 most common mistake that character artists make is anatomy. It's being weak on anatomy. Now, you'll hear all the time anatomy is important. Like when I went to school, I went to an art school, everyone says that all the time, and I'm saying that right now. And I think sometimes that can be interpreted as, oh no, it's like I gotta go to school and like I'm gonna be a doctor and all that stuff. And that's not exactly true. Really, the reason why it's so important, and people stress it and that I'm stressing it right now, is that when it comes to character art, if you are not able to utilize anatomy in a way that makes your character feel believable, if it bumps people, if someone looks at it and it feels wonky or it feels inaccurate or incorrect, and you can tell, like I can tell just by looking at someone's work if they're BSing anatomy and they don't understand like just the basics of what, muscles would be. And also faces, which is anatomy. Like if a face looks wonky or weird. So just not understanding or not having a grasp of fundamentals of a human body in a way that we can even stylize it, it means that the review of your work stops there. If someone's reviewing your work, if, right when you go to a portfolio, if the anatomy is weak, boop, you're off. That's it. It doesn't matter what else is there, okay? So that's why we say it's so important. So anatomy, it's really important, yes. What do you do about it? You practice, It's not a sexy answer. You just do little studies. You don't have to do a full naked Adonis all the time. Those are big projects. You could lead up to that. But just doing little studies of an arm, of a foot, of a leg, of a hand, of some faces. It's really about, the quantity of that. You want multiple practices. The way to get better at anatomy quickly is to like fill a sketchbook. That's how you do it in 2D. And in 3D, we need to create that. In today's, day and age, well, that sounds old saying. A lot of people want to do big, sexy projects. I mean, we all have, but I think there's like an underlying thing in the back of someone's head that they might share something. And it's really important to carve out part of your art and craft that's meant to be practicing and trying and experimenting, that's just for you. So you don't have to do an arm study that looks so good you can share it online or anything like that, And really, if you did 10 arms, if you did 10 heads, if you did 10 legs, and then you try your next character project, it's gonna be obviously better. And really, we want volume. That's how you get better at anatomy. You do studies, you have an example, you can look at muscle breakdowns, I have books on it, and you reference them so that you can eventually make stuff up. You can eventually play with it in a way that will feel balanced. Now, I'll give you a couple resources that you can check out. So the first one I always recommend is Anatomy for Sculptors. This is their website. And really, you can pick any book, but this is the first one that I would get, Anatomy for Sculptors. And it breaks it down in a lot of great ways, obviously. So you can see lots of nice references inside and out, different body types, and it breaks things down into shapes. That's why I think this is so good. So it's a great resource. If you're only going to pick up one anatomy book to reference, that would be the one. I also have an anatomy figure behind me. So, if you really get stuck, you can just put it on your desk. You can take the arm off and look around. But eventually, you want to get to a place where you're comfortable with all that stuff. It seems overwhelming in the beginning, but you just keep doing it and just keep the stakes low. Just have fun. Just try to make it fun projects. Try to do a study in one night or in one session. Limit yourself to that and just do more volume. And you're going to be a lot more confident going forward. And then all of your characters are going to benefit. So that's the number 1 mistake. Anatomy, really important to address it and do it in a way that's sustainable and just create volume. Don't try to make big projects out of it, okay? And you can get as detailed as you want. Couple more references for you. When it comes to faces, I always recommend this one. Portrait Sculpting by Felipe Foro, and I think his wife too. Yeah. So yeah, this is a great one. And what I love about this book, similarly, is it breaks faces down into simpler shapes. It's also like pretty simplistic, and I like that personally. You know, this helps boil a face down. You know, you might call it stylized, but it's like a stylized realism. And it also has different ethnicities, and it'll do different shapes, you know, for like the eye and for the lips. So super, super helpful. I love this book. So these are my top two in terms of reference material, reference books. These are the two that I always recommend, and I think they're the best. I have a lot of books that I never open, and these are the two that I think are most useful. Last thing, for the super hardcore people, is Scott Eaton's anatomy course. You can see here it's almost $400, and he'll do the full thing, you know? I haven't taken this personally. You know, of the two camps, I'm not the anatomy nerd where I memorized everything. Yeah, I'm just not interested in that much. If you are and you want to like turbocharge learning anatomy, this would be great. Like instead of a college class or something, this would be great. And then you're going to have the videos to reference from then on out. So if you're looking to invest in yourself in some sort of class for anatomy, this is the gold standard. So you can check out Scott Eaton's courses on his site. Mistake number 2. Posing your character. This one, a little bit more personal. I don't see this, you know, talked about a lot, but in my opinion, going the full distance on making a character model in any form, you know, to put it in your portfolio to share, and just leaving it in a default pose is just a tragedy. It's just so sad. So if we hop over to my work, you can see I took it on board and I started posing everything. If we go down here to the bottom, here's an example, right? This used to be just, you know, what a lot of us did and didn't think much about it. You know, we're just doing a study, and because we want to make characters for movies or games, like they're in a default pose, and it just happened without even thinking about it, to be honest with you. But characters are made to emote. That's the whole point. You know, to make a digital character is you want it to be brought to life, right? And in our jobs, we do make the character asset or model, and then other members of a team, it goes down a pipeline. So by the time it's alive, it looks really awesome, and like, you know, 10 people touched it, and it's a whole thing. And that's great. But when we are making our own projects, when we're making characters to go in a portfolio, I think it's our responsibility to do some of that ourselves, you know? And just job aside, like that's the whole point to make characters, is for them to act and give emotions and everything, you know what I mean? So it's really important in helping people connect with your character. It turns it from an object to like a very analytical experience for the viewer into an emotional experience. And it can elevate everything. It'll elevate all of your work, okay? Any character. So you can see I pose high poly models, which is, you know, can be a pain in the butt. The game models that I worked on, I pose them. Even this is like a really subtle expression just to break it. This is as subtle as you could go pretty much, but here's the default pose, right? A little bit more boring. But yeah, I pose the high poly models, trying to have them do something cool. And I try to choose a pose and a thing that represents that character or their personality or what they do. And I've carried that on to my, you know, personal projects, you know, including the getting more extreme with expressions, because I really want the character to convey an emotion. I want them to look like they are experiencing something, they're alive, and hopefully it can transcend just being a 3D model, even if it's just an image. Now, what can you do about posing? There are a lot of different options. You could rig it. That's the nerdiest, craziest option. I know a couple people that like to do that. Nobody kind of starts from scratch nowadays. If you were going to rig your character in Maya, you know, you would use something like Advanced Skeleton, which is a plugin. There's some paid for plugins that do a great job. Nowadays too, something kind of new is using these character creators. You can check out Michael Pavlovich, who's been showing that off. Pablo Munez has been doing that. I know Pablo has some good results with that. So you can get it pretty quick and you can throw on animations. And then you have this, the brute force old fashioned way. That's what I do. I just pose it with ZBrush. So it's essentially modeling. I just draw masks around things. I blur those masks. I put the transpose line where a bone would be and I rotate it. So I just do it bit by bit. Now that's a destructive way to do it. You know, it's a straightforward way where if I change my mind, I have to, you know, change everything. So it's not the most efficient, but it's the most low-tech, straightforward way to do it. That's how I've posed everything in here, except some of the game characters, I can just use the rig. You know, it's already rigged by other people because it's a game asset. But that's how I do my high poly stuff. That's how I did this the character from my class. You know, it's how I did some of the older characters. So it's really just using the little thing in ZBrush called Transpose Master. It just merges all your subtools together, and then I just pose it, and that's it. So it could take some time too. Give yourself some time when you pose. I set aside a whole day. You know, it can take hours. It doesn't seem like it, but it does take a while. And if you're gonna do it the straightforward brute force way, like I do, you have to be extremely clear with where you're headed. It's not something you can just like figure out in the moment. You can, if it's rigged, you can experiment, you can try some stuff, but if you're gonna actually just pose it, you know, like rigidly pose everything, it's important to know exactly where you're headed. I've actually taken multiple reference shots of myself for my projects, which I guess I'll put on the screen here and embarrass myself even further. And I serve as my own reference so that I know exactly, you know, what I wanna do, and I can follow that. All right, so posing. If you're not posing your work and you're sharing it online, that's something that you can do that in the whole grand scheme of your project, it's a small fraction of extra time, and it elevates it like, you know, a factor. The difference between a default character and a pose character, I think, is huge, and it could be the difference between somebody reviewing your work or not. Mistake number 3, texturing. Just weak texturing, a general neglect of texture and materials. This is natural. It's, you know, learning modeling, learning texturing, they are different. And you know, those used to be kind of specialties, and some studios there still are. I definitely focused on modeling for years first, and I neglected textures intentionally. I just thought someone else can do that. I need to get good at modeling. And it wasn't until later that I got into it, and then that became a big part of my workflow. And then things like Substance Painter coming out makes it a joy to do. Really important that you also focus on texturing if you're someone that wants to get a job in games or be a generalist, or you just want to make your own personal art and you want to elevate it. You know, they say in movies that audio is 50% or more of the experience. You can think of that similarly with 3D models and characters, because textures might be more than 50% of the importance, really, because a great model with a bad texture, a mediocre model with a great texture, see what I mean? Like, you can make or break it with a texture. You can save a bad model with a texture, absolutely. So what can you do about it? Well, you can practice. Yeah, I've made a couple videos on Substance Painter that you can check out, and tutorials that you can follow along with. I am really big on pushing Substance Painter, teaching other people how to texture and use that tool, because as I say, it's so important in your work, but also Substance Painter, of all the software packages, that's the one that there's no debate. Every major game studio uses Substance Painter. Everything that uses real-time models, so like everything that goes into Unreal Engine, if it's a hero prop, and that's what we're talking about, you know, props, characters, vehicles, guns, they go through Substance Painter. There's no like debate. There's no like, oh, Maya, Blender, or there's nothing. Like, the Substance Painter is it. In the CG world, which is different workflow, they use Mari, and that's for other reasons, very specific reasons. Substance Painter is used for real-time art. So probably the Batman show, you know, the Mandalorian, which aren't even games, right? ILM's using it. Every game studio is using it. Like, there's no debate. So getting good at Substance Painter elevates your work, makes your portfolio stronger, and makes you more hireable, because now you're using a software that you have to use. Like, that's part of it, you know? So that's why I think it's really important to consider it and get as good as you can. So just practice. It's gonna be fun. Just getting good at texturing is just about doing it, and texturing is fun, especially with Substance Painter, okay? So if you're waiting, don't wait. I collected some images too you can check out on my Pinterest that just have, you know, fun, cool examples of like, here's a metal that's really interesting. You know, here's some really messed up stuff. This is actually a 3D model. Look at that. Wow. This guy's killing it. Look at that. Woo! You see what I mean? Like, this is just a drill. 1.7K, dude. People are eating that up. This is not just a nerdy niche thing. This is like, here's a boring object, but look how I can elevate it with these textures. Fantastic. Fantastic. And what do they use? Substance Painter. See what I mean? Yeah, this is so great. So yeah, I have a couple videos on my channel. As I said, there's an awesome tutorial on ArtStation Learning. There's this great course right here that you can go through, and you can watch this person, again, just crush this weird, boring object and make an awesome, interesting work of art out of it. So lots of resources out there on Substance Painter. Use it in all your projects moving forward, even the simple ones. And the better you get, the better all of your work will be. All right, now I want to give a little bonus mistake. Mistake? That's a strong word, but a tip. And that's the thumbnail of ArtStation of your portfolio. So I'm wrapping this up. Presentation, if you haven't figured it out already, is a huge part of what we need to be doing to elevate our art, to make ourselves look more appealing to people so that people like review our work. The difference in a default character that's looking straightforward with a bad thumbnail with no color that's hard to see, people aren't going to click it. The work's not even getting reviewed. Now that's the same like 100-hour model, which is done great. And then that same model that's posed, that's lit, that's colored, that has a nice thumbnail, that's engaging, that stands out in the grid, you know? If I go over to ArtStation and I just look at community, like what's popping out, you know? It needs to be a thumbnail that pops out that you want to click. The more clicks you get, the more opportunities you're going to have in the long run. So I know it's silly to think about thumbnails. Maybe it's not silly to you, but it sounds a little bit silly for me to talk about. But, you know, being someone who also tries to make YouTube videos, and I also want people to click so that they can, if they're interested in this stuff, I think about thumbnails, and I think a lot about them for my work too. So I think it's something that people sleep on a little bit. They're just not acknowledging how important it is. So it might just be, it feels a little bit silly in the grand scheme of things, honestly, because it's a thumbnail and I just spent all this time doing this big project. But set aside some time, make custom thumbnails. The ones on ArtStation are 400 by 400 pixels. I've gone so far as taking a screenshot of ArtStation and I try different thumbnails, you know, in Photoshop to see if it stands out. I'd spend time on it. It's really important because if people aren't clicking it, it doesn't get as much visibility. And the way ArtStation works is to get on that trending tab, to get above the page fold, people need to click it. So it's kind of a snowball effect. If you make something that's clickable, and then once they get there, you got to back it up. It's got to be an interesting project. Then, you know, it tells the algorithm that people are interested in, blah, 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 and more people see it. And that's the whole point, is if we're going to post on a public portfolio website, that's a lot of P's, we want as many people to see it as possible, so that hopefully leads to opportunities, right? So I'll give you a couple examples that I think are interesting to call out just so you can see how serious I am. Added Unreal Engine 5 right here. That was a trendy topic at the time. You can see she's cropped in, it's colorful, it's clear, it works as this thumbnail. And then when you click it, it's more. So I think about trying to make a thumbnail that works on its own, that looks interesting and strong. And then when they click it, there's more, you know, it feels like, whoa. That's what I strive to do, so that people want to stay on the page and scroll down and learn more about it, right? So it's not exactly like the main image is the same as the thumbnail. Some people might do this where the thumbnail is like, you know, it's like this, right? Because they want to get more into it. Right? That's the thing you have to fight against. Artists want to put everything in the thumbnail because they're so proud of it. Makes sense. But this, trying to get more and more of the character in there, when it's small, you're not going to see it as clearly. And now there's a lot more negative space. So trying to actually make the thumbnail work on its own as an interesting image and then back it up with even more, that's what you want to be striving for. Here's another example that's kind of interesting. So this I did originally as a cyberpunk fan art, right? I wanted this to pop out. I like this image and I made it the first one, as you can see. And so we're kind of like pulling the rug out in a way. Like you click it and you expect one thing, but now we're getting this different thing. So I think that juxtaposition is interesting because here's the image that we clicked on, but you can see actually the background is dark. Now I thought this one, I needed it to be a person. I couldn't have it be like a weird color because when it's really small, does she have blue skin? What's going on here? It's confusing. It's not easy to read, even though I think this is a strong image. And this one looks like a person. That's good, but the background's dark. So I actually made a custom thumbnail, if you notice, like this image with the yellow background doesn't exist. I made it just for the thumbnail because this yellow is an iconic color from the game and it popped it. I'm always trying to find ways to put pops of color in the thumbnails because, you know, I want them to be clickable, like little candy images. And so when they click it, they get a little, whoa, that's different. And they scroll down and here they get, so they got the full thing and we did the thing I'm trying to strive for. Interesting image, you click it, there's more. You stay on the page. All right, so generally thumbnails, yes, in ArtStation, they matter. And also hopefully just this theme, this mindset of the presentation, thinking of the experience of the viewer. The more you do that, the more all of your work's gonna be, especially when you're doing work in the entertainment industry, because that's what we're doing. We're making art, we're making things to be experienced. And so I think that mindset is gonna help you create work that people are more engaged with, and that's more exciting, and that, you know, you should be thinking about the audience. You know, it's not just doing it for yourself. And if you are doing it for yourself, you don't have to share it. So if you're going to share it, I think doing these things to have a little bit more showmanship, think about the presentation, think about how you can elevate your work, that's going to make everything stronger. Now, if you're really, really serious about making characters for portfolios, I did make a class on doing just that. You can check out that information down below or at characterclass.com. And if you want to make work and ask for help, you know, we have a Discord community there. There's lots of people in there now, and you know, we share work in there. You can also become a character art team member. Here is in the membership of YouTube or in Patreon, and we do monthly Q&As if you wanted to like submit your work for review and things like that. So avoid these common mistakes. Focus on what's really, really important in your work. Don't forget presentation and showmanship. That stuff is going to make all of your work stronger and help you achieve your goals. Catch you in the next one. Peace.